Thanks for joining us. It's good to see your faces. I wish we could meet in person again, like we've done many times in the past, and we will again in the future. But in true pandemic / IFMA fashion, we are adapting, or as Janessa likes to say, pivoting, to be able to provide value to our members and our corporate partners and to our constituents in various ways. So this afternoon, we're here to have a conversation with our friends, our corporate partners that we rely on throughout the year. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of you and your organizations for continuing to support IFMA and be involved in IFMA. We can't thank you enough, and our members thank you. So when we were thinking about how do we continue to provide value to all of our types of members and partners, we thought, well, we have this opportunity where everyone has now adapted to technology tools and meeting tools like Zoom. So we said, well, let's have a conversation with our partners about their companies and how they're reacting and what they're able to do in the industry in this time. So that's what this is all about. You know, we're not going to take a long time, and we have a good sized group here, so we'll have to move pretty quickly. But I'd like just to quickly start by going around the virtual room here with 3 quick questions. Obviously, your name, your role in your company, as well as where your company is in the back to work process going on right now. So I will start there, and I guess I'm going to look at the list here, and I will just call out each person's name quickly so that we don't have people speaking over each other. But if we could start with you there, Brenda. Welcome.
Hi. Yes, no problem. Brenda Boysonow with Herman Miller. I'm the Regional Sales Director for New England. And I would say our current state is that, you know, we're back with full production, and, you know, obviously with the stay at home, it's had an impact, and it's exciting to kind of be back up in full swing of things. I would say as far as the return to work, that's been more recent. We are a global company, so we've got companies in Asia that have gone, in Hong Kong that went back several weeks ago, maybe even a month ago. So it's been interesting following them and understanding what they've been doing for a protocol with temperature checks and things like that coming into the space. So we've been taking note of a lot of, you know, what's been going on in our other offices around the country and around the world. As far as here nationally in the US, we are back to work. You know, some of our retail branches are still working from home, and we're at about a 25% having people voluntarily come back as they're wanting to. So most of them are still working from home, and I think that will be phased over the next several months. I'd see more people coming back in September, possibly October. But as far as from a factory manufacturing plant, they're at full production.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, thank you, and we will continue the conversation. All right, Steve, if you could.
Sure. My name is Steve Fox. I'm one of the co-founders of 4 Point Project Management. You know, from a resumption perspective, I think it's fair to say that we adapted, you know, very quickly to, I think, what we all consider to be the new norm. I think we're all sort of working on the same platforms, whether it be Team or Zoom or, you know, old school conference calls. But, you know, fortunately, a number of our projects were at, you know, various stages in their delivery. So we've stayed, you know, relatively busy through the entire process. You know, obviously our construction projects in the city of Boston were halted for some time, but they are, I think, as you all know, re-gearing up as we speak. So, you know, I consider ourselves fortunate in that regard.
Okay, great. Excellent. Phil, you're up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Phil Hammond. I'm the Director of Graduate Programs at Wentworth Institute of Technology. And Wentworth has gone totally online for the summer months, and the campus has basically gone down to just some essential personnel. And we're still going through the planning process for the fall. In terms of delivering classes, again, everything is online. But we're doing a lot of the same things in terms of studying the best way to return the students to campus, as a number of other universities are. I think those of us that are in the business are shocked to see that some schools like BC have jumped out front and said, yes, we're coming back, not knowing that there still may be a reoccurrence of the virus. But that being said, how has it affected my programs? Mine are online in terms of graduate in FM and CM. And in terms of enrollment and recruiting, we're having a graduate fair, a virtual graduate fair this Saturday. We've had a webinar virtual again, everything's virtual this past week. And again, having the opportunity to be in FMForward, I think is a great opportunity to continue to get the word out about Wentworth and to study online. So we're not treading water, and but we're not doing the breaststroke yet, but we're getting there.
So Phil, just out of interest, how much more time do you have to make a decision on the fall?
Based on what I'm hearing from the folks at Wentworth, a decision will be coming within the next month or so. But there's a lot of discussion about people coming back, people not coming back, cleaning classrooms, separation. Faculty is concerned about entering the classroom. Those of us that grew up during the 60s and the 50s. I kept thinking about the conversation we're going to have. If you've seen the movie Parasite, there's a line in that movie, the plan is, there is no plan. And I think that where we are now.
Absolutely, that is very well put. And even if there was a plan tomorrow or next 6 hours from now, it could be completely shot. Yeah, excellent. All right, let's see, Joy, if you could, you're up.
Thanks, Tom. Joy Shapiro, Director of Business Development at Dacon Corporation. I'd say, like Massachusetts, we're in phase 1 of coming back to the office, much like the state. Our office opened on June 1st. We are fortunate in the fact that we have a lot of people that are on site. So our field people have been able to remain in the field on a couple of essential projects we've had. We are fortunately not in Boston, so none of those areas were affected for Dacon being open shop. And I think people are coming in as they feel comfortable. People are required to fill out an employee self-certification every day upon entry and answer questions when they come into the office. We're having no visitors, and we're social distancing, wearing masks, having one-way hallways. And we've had a couple of people at the beginning of this pandemic that were furloughed, and we've happily been able to bring them all back. So it's a good sign, and we're starting to see a lot of our other non-essential construction projects open as well. So we're fortunately doing very well in this situation.
Good to hear. That's really good. All right, Julie, if you could.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Nasser. I'm the Director of Business Development at Margulies Peruzzi. We are in the process of starting to open our office back up. So actually on Monday will be the first day that we are technically allowed to open back up. We have a training tomorrow that we have to go through and learn the ropes and understand what we need to do. But of course, it'll be 25% max, which I doubt we'll even get to. It's kind of a voluntary basis. So anybody that feels comfortable going in can go in, but they have to sign in, and they're assigned different days. So we have a color-coded scheme going on, and yellow is Monday, blue is Tuesday. So if you feel comfortable going back in, you can have your day, and that's where you sit, and then it's cleaned and go from there. But we're very interested to see how it goes. Luckily, we have been able to be very productive from home. So, I see that most people will probably continue to do so until things get significantly better, but we'll see what happens.
Great. Interesting to hear the differences, but so many similarities, and also some of the IFMA programming, we've had these types of questions. We hear a lot of similar tones, but also some differences that talk about individual companies and how they go about it. All right, next up, Kim, if you will.
Thank you, Tom. My name is Kim Giles. I'm the Regional Director for North America for Move Plan. We are, too, a global company, and our business model has always been a little different. We've never had a brick and mortar office. We always worked from our customer sites. So returning and working remotely is pretty much part of our business model. So we didn't have too much to do to pivot to start working from home. But a large part of what we do is very customer facing. So we are returning to work as our customers are returning to work and spending the time trying to understand what their business continuity plans and their phased return plans look like. And we're actually working with some of those customers to help implement their own phased return to work plan and helping them to get the word out from a communications perspective, implementation of certain activities, training programs. So we are really much focused on the service provider end of this return to work. And for our own staff, we are having to go back to our job sites. We are doing the self-certifications. We are requesting that, we understand what the customer's requirements are, and we're having to certify through that process as well. So it's almost a two-step process for each one of our staff members when they do go back.
Interesting. Okay, great. All right, well, since I don't see any of the other Chris's, and I know your name says Cotter, I'm going to call you Chris. Chris, you're up.
Thank you. We keep it easy over at VBA.
Yeah, I know.
So with it, my name is Chris Cotter. I'm a senior associate and project manager here at VBA. For us, we've been pretty flexible. We're able to work remotely even prior to this, so it hasn't been that much of a shift for us. With it, though, the office is still open, but I don't know if anyone's technically gone back in. It's really an as-needed basis if you're comfortable and if you want to. But otherwise, we're still visiting job sites for clients as needed. We're still servicing the clients on site if needed, again, also more remotely as well, too. So that's where we are in our return.
Perfect, thank you. Sandra?
Hi, everyone. Sandra Gucciardi, and I'm with STV DPM. Tom and IFMA, thanks for putting this together. Really appreciate this. So some of you know we are a national firm. So right from the get-go, once the pandemic hit, we really just closed down shop. I will say very few of our offices since that time have opened. I work out of the Newton office, and there is no return date back for us to come back to the office. It's really case by case, and like I said, very few of our offices have opened. We are really working on a return to work plan with HR and our CEO. The work from home, much like a lot of the others have said, we do quite a bit of that, and it has been really successful across the board. So that, I think that's where the rush is, right? To not come back and put employees at risk. There are, again, much like a lot of the folks, we work in a lot of different sectors. So our healthcare, life science clients, where there have been deemed essential, really we have had staff working with them and on their sites and helping them with their return to work plans. But STV, really, there's no date to go back yet. So that's where we are kind of in the process.
Okay, interesting. And then Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Hamill from William B. Meyer, Inc., Meyer Office Moving. And actually, none of our locations shut down during this. We were deemed an essential service because we do warehousing, distribution, trucking, logistics, as well as office moves and reconfigurations and such. So most of our projects were heavily impacted and closed down, but we did pick up some other business. We were designated an essential, we were designated as a distribution center for the state of Connecticut for the emergency PPE and supplies that were coming in. So that was coming into our Windsor warehouse, and then we were taking and delivering that out to the municipalities and the local governments and the hospitals and such. So, and some of our clients had us in doing work while no one was in the facilities. Obviously, it was significantly reduced. Our office and administrative staff were allowed to work from home, so we've reduced the staff in the offices. And they're coming back slowly. So we're following the recommended protocols. The other thing that we're also doing is we have to incorporate what our client protocols for the COVID-19 are into our standard operating procedures as well. So yeah, that's where we are with things. So again, we're seeing things slowly open up again, and again, we were never really shut down at all. So it's been interesting. It's definitely different, and you know, we're out in front of people all the time, and what we do, we actually have to put people out on job sites. So reduction in crew size, temperature checks, self-certifying, you know, all those things are things we've already been doing for as long as we've gotten the guidance for. So it's just now incorporating what else our clients want as far as additional steps on top of those protocols.
So, you know, and to move into this, and I will say that at any point, if people have questions for their peers or just in follow up to something that someone says, please chime in. You're welcome to do that. You know, and what I'd like to do is actually talk about business for a minute. When was the last time you talked about business? It's always, you know, in this frame of COVID, but because it's changing so rapidly and because people are having to adapt, it is relevant. But let's kind of merge the two a little bit, and everybody's going to be a little bit different based upon their business and the way that they approach their work. But how have your companies, you know, responded or adapted your business so that you can serve customers either differently, or if it is in a similar way, how have things stayed the same? So, and I'm not going to go around the room here. We'll let people just kind of chime in as they feel.
I'll go, Tom. You know, some of the work that we do is very much needing to be on site, you know, quantifying storage, understanding, you know, where a piece of furniture might be sitting. So where we've been able to get on site in a very limited capacity in some of our projects, we've actually been doing virtual tours of space or virtual site surveying, if you will, to, you know, that one nominated person who's gone through that clearance process to get on site is using their phone to walk through the space with the customer to say, okay, you know, what's in this filing cabinet, and standing, you know, giving them the geography of the location of it in the building, and then we're quantifying that information, you know, while we're alone and physically distanced with no one else typically on the floor. So that is just one way we've adapted on trying to continue some of the work that we had been doing, especially for customers who had some pretty serious lease expiration dates that they were working up against, and trying to not stop the momentum of the project.
Right.
For that, all of our current projects, we've pretty much just shifted to virtual as we're doing here. A lot of virtual project meetings, a lot of FaceTime walkthroughs and punch lists with all of our clients. But really, otherwise, as a company, what we're looking to do is help our clients implement changes that they're looking to do to safely return people to the workspace. So we've realized that we're not architects, we're not engineers, we're not experts at what people need to do, but we are experts at the costing and the implementation. So that's really where we're looking to help our clients there.
Yeah, along the same lines, we're just changing up the conversations that we're having. We have been lucky that we've maintained a lot of our projects as this has happened. So Zoom is just kind of a regular thing now. We're using Microsoft Teams, and it's actually great. It's allowing us to continue to manage our teams remotely and kind of business as usual. We found this great tool. It's a whiteboard app where everybody can kind of do their sketches and at the same time. So, you know, you can share your screen, people can sort of do their sketches and drawings and ideas, and then it's saved and you can show it to clients, and it's been really great. So we're able to continue with the design process and move forward. And, you know, now we're just talking about how are our clients going to return back to work, guiding them. I mean, we're not experts because nobody is right now, but certainly speaking with our partners, working together with, you know, construction, engineering, and everybody to make sure that we're all on the same page about what's safe, and, you know, we can make recommendations as needed.
Tom Hamill.
Herman Miller. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, from a Herman Miller standpoint, I feel like from day one, it's been communication. So we've certainly been doing that a lot, whether it's with our own employees, with our dealer partners, Creative Office Pavilion here locally, as well as all of our business partners, the A&D, the project management firms. And it's interesting how some almost didn't skip a beat, where you're just continuing. And then there's been a lot of training that's been involved. We're like, well, let's take this time to kind of brush up on some things. But I will say it's been interesting with the number of virtual presentations. I think you guys mentioned that as well, where you're literally, there's been some multi-million-dollar projects that never touched the product, never met the team, that they were still moving forward. So it's been kind of interesting, the amount of work that we've been able to continue to do virtually. So it's been interesting and fun and challenging and exhausting too. So, but it's all been good.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. So some of what we've been doing is, again, we continue to operate, through everything at a reduced capacity, but we also were able to take the time. We had a major initiative that launched this year called our Workplace Solutions Group. And so we've actually pushed forward with that initiative, and actually took the time to interview quite a few people and put out a few offers this week as well to build up that group. In addition, we had been working on some training programs internally for our techs, our furniture installers, and our technicians and our IT staff. And we took that time as well to accelerate that. And then it was good for us because we kept us busy, and as well, we were able to develop some curriculum, some structure, and actually put a pilot program in place during the time. So we took advantage of some of that time and space that we had. And we've done a lot of it, again, virtually as well, and putting it together. But we've had some on-site hands-on trainings that we've had to have, and we've conducted them. So it's been good and bad. I mean, we're trying to do the best we can with it. So I think we've done very, very well. The organization is the culture is built around, moving forward. They have a 105-year history, so they've seen a lot, and they're used to, change. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, and Tom, this is Sandra, just to add, to what a lot of the folks have been saying. I mean, it goes without saying, we've been doing a lot of the work virtually, all of the work virtually. It's been really seamless, like a lot of the folks have said. I think we had so much trepidation right at the beginning, even though a lot of us do work from home, but just wondering how we're going to manage all of it. But honestly, it's really been wonderful. And, Janessa at the beginning of our talk here mentioned that, and you did as well, Tom, mentioned the word pivot. And I think not only have we had to change kind of the way we work, but more so change up what our clients are requesting, right? And what are they asking for? And because of everybody's at a standstill, just their focus has been on their employees and that whole return to work. We've actually assembled with a lot of multidisciplined partners that we have in the industry, a consortium, and we've put together just, I don't want to say experts in COVID, but at least experts within each of their industries and fields in what are they hearing from their clients and what are they talking about? So we've had a ton of roundtables, and because of that, just clients have been asking us to help them out with that whole return to work. And so it really has pivoted our whole service into what is the value that we're adding right now to help our clients? So it's really been a great thing, I feel, in how we can help them get back to work and, and move on to the future.
That it's really interesting you said that, and I want to let the last few have their chance to respond to that one particular question, but you led right into a follow-up question that I had. Is at least 3 or 4 of you have made similar mention. My question naturally was, how are customers responding to this, and what are their requests of you, and how are they changing? So work that in as we can, but certainly Joy and Steve and Phil, if you have additional items you wanted to jump in with.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're additional, Tom, because I think there's a sort of a consistent theme in what everyone's suggesting. And, the interesting thing is, as someone pointed out, none of us are truly experts in COVID response. And, we're, I think, doing the best we can to interpret sort of the evolving guidelines that seem to change day to day, week to week, and, provide our clients with the best guidance we can. And, I find it interesting that, our client's response sort of runs the gamut from, a very, conservative response, to a very aggressive response. And, the additional thing that surprised me is, I naively thought sort of early in the trajectory of COVID that people would be eager to get back to their offices. And, I'm finding just the opposite, that no one seems to be rushing back at this point. And in some cases, our clients are deferring returning to the office, in some cases until after Labor Day, and in others until January 1st. So a lot of variation out there in terms of response.
Yeah,
Let me jump in too, in terms of how I'm unique in higher ed that I consider students and faculty clients, whereas from the business side of things. So keeping those clients happy has been very challenging, in that those students who wanted to come to campus and now teaching learning online, that's not what they signed up for. So they're looking for a return on their money, which probably won't happen. Because a college credit is worth something, and you're paying for college credit, and it does cost something. And with the faculty themselves, it's really doing a lot of hand-holding and helping them. But I couldn't agree more with some of the comments. The one thing about this environment that we're working in, it's tiring. It's exhausting. We wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, we're checking our emails, and before we go to bed at night, we're doing the same thing. And I miss Dairy Queen. I'm sorry, I miss Dairy Queen. So they have it.
it's hard to find a Dairy Queen these days.
Come to Weymouth. They're open in Weymouth.
They're open in Natick too. Just putting
Great
it.
news.
So that's not the only thing I have to add to this conversation. I'll just say we've had a lot of success, as well as others, with these presentations and these Zoom calls. I find that in our business development area, a lot of people have been open to online calls and presentations, because you're not driving in and booking a conference room and providing lunch and, taking people's time for an hour and a half. They get on a quick Zoom call, they see the presentation, and they've been so well receptive to it, which is refreshing, as well as the organizations, particularly the one we're on right now. IFMA's provided some really good roundtables and leadership and put out great information. And the FMForward next week, I think, is going to be a huge asset to the people that are attending and the tech talks that we're providing.
Plug. You should be president or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'll try that.
Hey, this is to pivot off of what Steve was, or to springboard off what Steve was saying. I thought so too early on in the, I guess in the crisis too, naively, that people will be eager to get back. And we're finding the same thing as Steve is, I think it's a very cautious approach that people are taking. I don't know if it's only a Northeast thing. I mean, we have a Delaware operation, and that's it's pretty similar to what we're seeing up here now. But the other aspect of it is, I think we thought there might be a need for some reconfigurations, alterations of the space and such. And what we're finding is people are holding back on that. They want to be cautious. They want to be slow. So I think what they're looking at is, what's the next step? What do we do to get to 20% or 25%? And then they're trying to see how that works, and then they'll build off of that. So I don't think that most of the people I'm seeing don't have a firm plan to get through everything. They have a plan to try to get to the next step.
I think what's hard for a lot of our clients, though, is that things seem to change on an almost daily basis, and they're afraid to implement something right now if in 6 months down the line it's a wasted cost, if it's either not effective anymore or if it's not necessary at that point. So for a lot of our clients, it's a little bit of that waiting game to see, again, what is worth actually doing now versus an immediate kind of reaction, even though it's not the right long term.
Yeah, we have a client who's actually saying that they're not going to return to work until there's a vaccine. And so that date is a big question mark. They're a very large, financial services company, and they did not work from home previously, and they found that the social experiment that we were all forced upon, it has worked. And so they have no plans right now, and we'll be taking a very cautious approach to returning.
In a way, it's almost like it's similar in a business sense as it is to in a personal or familial sense, in that we're all looking for the right answer and okay, we need the direction and what's going to happen. But even those tasked with being in charge of either a company or a state or whatever it may be, nobody really knows, right? We're trying to make the right decision and adapt and make it work for yourself. And, I know personally in my own family life, I have two sides of the family that feel completely differently. We all feel the same way about what needs to happen, but at the same time, on one side, they're more comfortable, on the other, they're completely uncomfortable. So and neither one is wrong, right? So I think that applies across the board in business as well.
Yeah, and Tom, I would add to that, for a corporation, right, you even have, there's that little nasty word, liability. So,
Yeah, good point.
I think it's not only cultural, but I think there's a legal thing here too. So we've been hearing the same thing that Kim said and Steve said. So just people are just very cautious and not that eager to get back.
I think it's also a cost.
Right. Yes.
To return to work, you must have a whole slew of expenses for PPE. And
Right.
if you choose to not use public transportation, are you subsidizing parking now for your staff? So to delay the return just defers the having to need to spend that kind of money, which I think some people are trying to do for that reason.
Yeah.
I'm finding that a lot of the conversations that we're having with clients, they're asking what everybody else is asking about. Like, what are your other clients doing? What are your other clients asking you? And, everybody just wants to know what's everyone else doing. And no one is like ready to make that first step to just try it out. So we're all just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen when we all go back and how does it work and what's going to pivot and what's going to happen. So everyone's just wondering what's everyone else doing.
Kim just brought up a great point that I didn't think of earlier because I'm so removed from Boston at this point. Are employees in Boston providing parking for employees that regularly commute? I didn't even think of that consideration. Is that something that's out there?
One of the customers we're working with was providing MBTA subsidies for their commuter rail passes. And so they're considering pivoting, to use the word. Instead of giving MBTA subsidies, they would do parking subsidies instead.
Interesting.
Which is so strange because what's been happening in the city and all the development over the past 5 years.
More parking.
Exactly. So this particular customer hasn't made that decision yet, but that is something they're considering doing, which would make traffic all the worse driving into the city.
Right. Interesting.
Wow. So, all right, let's move to a little bit more of a positive subject and related to this, though, because one of the things that we've started to see is people get really creative. I mean, people are always creative, but I've heard and participated in some really kind of interesting ways to stay engaged with your companies and even your customers, I would say. So let's kind of take this opportunity to see what you've seen and what your companies have done and participated in to either reinforce or maintain your culture. And if you wanted to throw in your relationship with your customers to that as well, please go right ahead.
All right, Tom, I'll go first. Coincidentally, we have a low-impact yoga class later today.
Ah, all right.
And that's an internal four-point effort. And we try to do something creative once every 2 weeks. And then on the client side, they had a terrific bartending class that I attended. I won't say which client, but get them in any trouble. But that was fun.
Wow. Great.
That's great.
So internally, we are too also meeting every 2 weeks to do something that's just fun. Drinking is encouraged. But we've been playing, we're fortunate to have someone on our team who loves games, and he's been creating a personalized version of a variety of games like Family Feud. So we've pitted two teams together, so Boston versus New York. We've also played Jeopardy, and he's been really creative in creating those games for everyone. But it's a nice break from everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've
we did
always had
a Family Feud too, Kim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I might want to add that one. Sounds great. Every Friday, typically we have snack at our office where it's really just, everyone kind of goes together in the kitchen typically, and we'll make food. Somebody brings food every week, and we drink, get to know each other. So we've made it a point to just maintain that consistently. So every Friday, 4:00, we have snack. There's been a different theme every time. So, best backgrounds or best masks or, margaritas or whatever, Cinco de Mayo, fun stuff. But pretty much the whole office comes on. So it's really nice to just be able to see everybody not worry about work. We play games, trivia, I'll add Family Feud and Jeopardy for sure. But, we always do our best to keep the fun involved.
Anybody else?
I've had a lot of happy hours in the beginning. My husband was like, is this every night? There seemed to be a different, you know what? I think that's certainly been something that was a popular theme, and some coffee breaks. Some of them were, whether it was a hat or whether it was Cinco de Mayo or something related along those lines. I think there was one that was a Fireball Friday. There were just some different, trying to be a little creative. I think some of those happy hours have kind of wound down a little bit, but I think that all in all, the game nights and stuff like that we've done were a lot of fun. So similar, we didn't do the Jeopardy, but we did do a trivia night, and that was a lot of fun. That was, poking some history, but also poking a little fun at some of the folks and trying to guess those questions. So that's kind of what we've been up to for that.
Been just doing happy hours, but now that I've got some great ideas, I'll
Yeah.
try to be a little more creative.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know, we
some
need the
of those-
bartender's name, the bartender's class, Steve, that you pass that on.
I'll pass that along to you.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good idea. Yeah, same here. We've been doing a lot of coffee meetings and happy hours on the Zoom, but internally, it's been pretty. One of the things that's been beneficial about this, I guess, is we've always struggled as our sales group as to kind of get together and really on a regular basis and share with each other what's going on in our worlds and everything. And this has actually made it possible that we've all participated in it. And then our ownership has been really using it as a tool to communicate the positive things. And they've been able to reach out to a much greater group of people, a much wider group of people in one session because of it. So that has been a real positive of it. Again, how we communicate internally with each other, how we get, because we're spread out between, from Massachusetts to Delaware. So that's been really nice. We haven't had to get into the car and drive for hours and, and change up our schedules so much. So that's been a really positive aspect of this for us.
Now, Phil, on your side, just to jump off something you asked a little while ago, you guys had been pushing towards online courses and programs and things in the past few years, so you were somewhat prepared for it. But how has your core customer base adapted? I know earlier you mentioned that some people who really wanted that in-person experience aren't really getting that, but are you seeing that you think this will be a kind of like the wave that really gets most people into online, or what do you think?
Well, I think that Wentworth is unique, and a lot of you folks on the call have connections with the design and engineering side of Wentworth. And those people need to be in the labs. Those people need to be in the studios to draw. So that's been the biggest challenge, is getting those students back into the studios to do their work. Because an architect can't design virtually. Well, they can, but they like to be collaborative. So that's been a big challenge, especially on the undergraduate side. The online side, that was already in place. So that worked out well for us. We were ready for that. But again, just trying to meet the needs of the clients, again, students and faculty, and just to be, the word I hear is empathetic. Be very empathetic to what they signed up for and what they're not getting. So there's a lot of that, but no, we're not having any happy hours. We're not having, we have
Well,
trivia.
clean, dry campus, right? So,
Yeah, well, yes, well, and student life is doing trivia night and all that, but again, on the graduate side, those of you and those of us that have family at home, it's crazy. There's no happy hour when you have children underfoot. So let's, but we're doing the best. So, but again, I think we're waiting until September, but I think we're also waiting until January.
interesting. So in terms of formal questions that we kind of prepared ahead of time, that's runs the gamut there. But I do want to give everybody one last opportunity before we close down here, is just to kind of say anything open-ended, comment to anyone here or anyone watching after the fact about your business or your IFMA, or just a comment of any kind. So please jump right in.
Thank you guys very much at IFMA for keeping the programming going during this. There's a lot of webinars, but I do find that the webinars put on by IFMA are some of the best ones that we listen to. It's not a regurgitation of the same ones you hear, just a different speaker depending upon who's presenting it. And I think FM Forward next week will be a good continuation of that as well. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And quickly on that, I will say we've had many conversations about this, and Joy can attest that, what's the right answer here? Do we go all COVID all the time? And it felt like we were for a while and still are. But then when we looked at FM Forward, we have a kind of a balance, and we actually had some people want to know if we were even interested in continuing with the original programming that we had gone through, because it's not what people are faced with on a daily basis. But we feel like we need to straddle the line, because in some regards, people may need to take an hour off from that they live 24/7, particularly in the FM industry, and hear some regular or old normal, if you. So we're going to try to keep that balance. And then I will also say, typically our year ends from an IFMA standpoint at the end of June, and other than the golf tournament, we take a few months off. But given the circumstances in the changing world, we anticipate that we will continue to do a little bit more virtual programming throughout the summer, given that who knows when we can really rejoin each other in person. Even if we get into the fall and we think it might be time, who knows really, and what's the people's comfort level. As we heard on this call, everyone is different. We know some chapters are reopening for live events, but they're in different places and not in the Northeast. So that's on the IFMA side. But anyone else with general comments? Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I just also like to take the time to thank IFMA Boston. It's the thing that's always impressed me about the organization is the community and the spirit of the community. And that's been really evident in all the things that have been going on in preparation for FM Forward, but also on the pop-ups and the content that's been put out there. And, I'd encourage all the IFMA members to reach out to their community. You have questions, everybody, anybody I've ever reached out to in the community has been very helpful. Just, from hearing what's going on in their world and, asking questions about best practices, asking questions about next steps. Those are things that the community is really strong on here in IFMA. So I would definitely encourage the people that get to see this and get to participate in the FM Forward event, take advantage of that, because that's actually helping you get through this time.
That's nice, Tom. Thank you for saying that. And to piggyback on what Tom Pulane said, I think people had been inundated with a lot of COVID-19 webinars and panels. So it's a nice way to sort of get back to the normal and hear about the tech talks that we're doing that aren't based around this current pandemic, and just take a break from it for a while and give our FM content that they have been seeking. And I think right now IFMA, as we've been saying, is about 83% FM involvement. The rate has been up for all of our webinars and downloading our podcasts. So we're really proud of that, to be able to address their needs during this time, as well as give them a break from it too.
Yeah, Joy, I'll second, I appreciate all of the content and all of the regular business as usual kind of content that's been out there. The one thing I hope that after all of this COVID stuff is gone is that the availability of some of these podcasts and events are still available virtually. For those of us who have children and sports and all that other stuff, it makes it challenging to always attend to some of these events. I personally have attended way more networking events because they're available to me now virtually, which I greatly appreciate, and hope that this organization, IFMA, finds a way to weave that in somehow in the go forward.
And I would say that that's really interesting. You say that it's something we've found. You know something when you start to see trends, and you're like, okay, we hear time and time again that we have to diversify. And so as you saw over the past few years, we do things in the suburbs, then we go back to the city, or we do something in the morning and then we do it afternoon. So we're trying to be a little bit to all the different people that are the major constituents. And I think you're absolutely right, Kim, that this circumstance has thrust upon people the need to do things differently, and organizations included. And so I think some of it will stay. A lot of it probably will. And it's just, breaking habits that weren't necessarily bad, but just the world changes and you have to be able to adapt.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with Tom. Community is such a big thing right now because we're all on our own, but we're still connected. So it's really important to be able to rely on our partners and to be there for people that may need us. So, I just think it's important for everybody to be open and available to help others. I'm certainly available as needed if anyone has any questions or if I can help in any way, but I really appreciate what IFMA is doing. This is great. I'm very excited for FM Forward and appreciate this opportunity.
I'd just like to double
I will
down
also
on that
say-
gratitude, because I think that they've done a great job. IFMA Boston has always, under the leadership of Joy and Tom and Janessa, they've done a great job of keeping us all knitted together. And the one thing, if I do have an observation, is the creativity that you've mentioned. I liken it to the space shot that we did in the 60s. Everybody's really working hard to be creative. And it's coming up with some really interesting things now. And I'm pretty excited, and I'm optimistic too.
Tom, I was just going to say thank you again for IFMA for putting this on and FM Forward next week. I will say that we are very fortunate to have such a strong network, as Joy had referenced as well, with so many different great industries that help each other through these tough times. And I will just say that I hope that these same organizations can kind of help with some of the other things going on that are pretty tragic right now. So I hope that we can come together as a community and Boston strong like we have in the past, and make a difference and an impact. Not to go down that road, but I think it's an important topic right now, and it's something that is very an important thing to address that's been long overdue.
I would add, Tom, I think the current sort of response that IFMA is providing is, it speaks to the resilience of the organization. I think I've been a member now for, some 30 years, I hate to say, and have seen, the significant growth and the evolution of the organization over that time period. So, the steps that you're taking and that Joy will continue to take in providing, these outlets is fabulous. And, I continue to be a proud member, and, Fort Point is proud to be associated with IFMA and will continue to be.
We're going to hold you to that.
I know you will.
Your invoice will be in the mail.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you,
I would
Steve.
echo what everybody's saying here, and not only IFMA, and you have been so creative. You guys have done a phenomenal job. I really can't wait for next week. But I also will say to my industry partners right here that it's a pleasure to be really in this industry with all of you. And I hope that even when we get through this, that we can continue these dialogues, because I think we all bring something to the table, and really it's just a pleasure to be in business with all of you.
It's well said, Sandra. And I would say, just listening even today here on this call, you hear, like Phil said, creativity, resourcefulness, and even though there's similarities, we're also taking things and making them our own from a business perspective. And I think that's really great. And I'm thrilled to hear that the IFMA community feels that they are still a huge community, which we are. You know, we look at the numbers from a membership basis, you know, all the time. And sure, there's ebbs and flows and ups and downs, but really at the core, you know, it's a solid line. It goes up a little bit here and there, but if you look at the growth, people are together, and we're starting to see familiar faces in certain areas and then new faces, and that's always a good thing. So, and we hope for you guys as corporate partners that when we can all get back together, and there'll be lots more conversations in person, office visits, things like that. But the other thing that I think is a nice unintended consequence is that people are going to each other, as some of you said here, for expertise, not so much just look at it as a service provider, but you know what, you're a partner. You're somebody who can provide value, can provide unique services, and you really helped me out in a bind. And I think that's why our organization has always drawn people, is because this group is very strong at that in building networks. So with that being said, I think we can probably stop the recording. And thank you all very much. You'll notice that I have a Fenway background. That was on purpose because we do our sponsorships based on ballpark, stadium, garden, all that stuff. And I miss Fenway, man. I'm telling you, I can't. It's killing me that baseball isn't back, and who knows when it will be. I'm afraid of the repercussions of no sports, but I digress. So thank you all for your continued sponsorship.